Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome on over to another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. I'm your host, Matt Tardio. Today, we're going to be going over a heck of a lot of information, and we're going to be taking questions at the end from the true supporters over on Discord. So if that's something you want to partake in, make sure that you stick around to the end because it's going to be a heck of a discussion, I promise you. Last night, we sat here on this podcast and we listened to reporters basically grill Trump inside the Oval Office about TikTok of all things. Kind of blew my mind. And I think it should blow most Americans' minds that that's where it was going. He's signing major executive orders last night, which have global massive implications. And yet the American news media sitting inside the Oval Office was busy just harping on him about TikTok. I no kidding. And for those of you guys that joined me on that live discussion last night, I think it blew your mind as well. That we have U.S. hostages that we're worried about. We have, the war going on over in the Middle East. We have the war inside of Ukraine. He is directing his staff to designate cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. All of these are massive, massive discussions. Withdrew from the World Health Organization. Building a massive border wall. Remain in Mexico. All of these are huge, 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 huge deals. And yet the American media was focused on TikTok. And I want to know why. But something even crazier came out, like Trump was prepared for it. And he actually brought up things of the US might potentially buy TikTok. Like we want at least 50% of TikTok is what he was saying. And that he'll take tariffs and impose them, like potentially take tariffs and impose them on China if they don't agree. Because without the United States, TikTok is essentially worthless, according to Trump. He said it, and it was over there, and we'll go over some of those statements. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to see you all in the house today. I hope you guys are ready for this discussion because it's going to get crazy. Now, even yesterday, when Trump was giving his, speech post swearing in over at the convention center, he had Noah Arjamani standing behind him, several other people that have been held hostage. And so the question is, what is going to take place over inside Israel as well? Because I know a lot of people are worried about it. Well, now it looks like other people are starting to resign over inside Israel. Huge deal. So we're going to be talking about all of that and more coming up today. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me where you are checking in from. I am very curious where everybody's at. Tell me. Throw it down in the chat. Where are you guys checking in from? Love to see all the green names. Also love to see the gray names. So if you guys are new to the channel, make sure that you like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell because we are shadow banned like it's nobody's business. Believe it or not, it's a thing and it happens from time to time. That's where we're currently sitting at. So let's get into this. Trump day one moves on Israel. We're just going to do this up front. If you guys don't know, this channel has heavily supported Israel for a very, very long period of time. Macon, Georgia, Riverside, California, Oklahoma, Montana, love it. Utah, Jersey, OKC, love it, love it, love it. West Virginia. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Seattle, Ohio, Virginia, got it. So here's the stuff that takes place going over to Israel. He had taken out Executive Order 14115. Now that executive order removed sanctions on the Israeli settlers over in Judea and Samaria. Now that was a big deal if you were following the war over inside of Israel. And that was a big deal because like those settlers being designated like that, some of them who got named had like certain financial restrictions and things like that placed against them. So it's a huge problem. Restoring the sanctions on the ICC. All right. It reinstated penalties on the International Criminal Court, undoing Biden, reversing it. That also is a very, very big deal, along with like the World Health Organization, obviously, because Netanyahu, Gallant, dude, all of these people have been getting grilled by the ICC. And we've got huge problems with the ICC just in general in the people that, in the information that's been presented. It looks like the UN, the ICC, and NATO all have a lot of problems right now. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this is going to come about. He also ordered a 90-day freeze on foreign aid. 90-day freeze on U.S. foreign aid. The reason he did that is he wanted to make sure that everything is aligning with U.S. national interest and the U.S. national security policy. Now, I don't know whether or not that is going to affect it shouldn't affect purchases and things like that Israel has done going towards their war effort. When it goes down to the immigration policy here in the United States, that was something that absolutely blew my mind. I'm already seeing videos and things like that over inside of southern Texas of more CBP vehicles and things like that being trucked down to the border. So that within itself is going to be absolutely wild and absolutely crazy. See how that unfolds. Supposedly, there's going to be a lot of deportations that are going to be taking place over here in the United States of America. We're talking about, number one, people that are here on student visas who support Hamas. Now, it makes sense. If you support Hamas, you don't get a visa to come to the United States. Hamas is a designated terror organization. If you support Hamas, you don't get to come to the United States of America. Well, if you have a student visa here over inside the United States or any other, i.e., you're not a citizen and you want to remain in this country, you definitely shouldn't be allowed to support terror organizations or our enemies. There is free speech, and then there is supporting terrorism. And this is so bad. This is so bad that I've seen these things up over, no kidding. I've seen these things, Hamas flags, ISIS flags, Taliban flags, being flown on college campuses, being flown in freaking parades, being like marched all around the country. And a lot of that is because people's minds are being infected via TikTok. 100%, I mean it, honest to God's truth, sat down on college campuses, talked to kids, ask them where they're getting their information from. And it's coming from TikTok. Nobody is watching mainstream media. Nobody is like, that's not where they're getting anything from. They're getting it in short form content like YouTube Shorts, like TikTok and like IG, several other places where they're taking it all in. So if they don't get a handle on that, then it's a problem. But there's another problem that goes into the software system on the backside of TikTok. The software system on the backside of TikTok allegedly has the ability to like even pull down your IMEI. So we're going to discuss all of those things here in a little bit. Lots and lots of scary stuff. He had lifted the restrictions on advanced arms sales to Israel, greenlighting critical munitions to bolster Israel's defense. There you go. There's the answer I was looking for as well. I already had it down in my notes. Now, once we start, I guess, diving into that a little bit deeper and we start talking about the sales to Israel and everything else, let's go. Trump's back in office, ready to go. Man, you guys are freaking pumped for him to be in office. That's great. But understand that when we start, and I've got the PDF of the executive order that's designating the cartels as a foreign terror organization, or that's directing his staff to figure out which cartels are going to be targeted as foreign terror organizations. That's a huge deal because that's opening up a whole other scope, right, of the United States government that's going to be able to go and start targeting these cartels and what they're doing. The other thing is once those cartels are identified as foreign terror organizations, well, then automatically, the moment that happens, the amount of foreign terrorists here in the United States is going to be nuts. Absolutely nuts. Just take LA, for example. Take any major city. Hell, Dallas, Houston, San Antonio. That is a big flipping deal. Do I think that the United States military is going to start acting here on U.S. soil? Probably flipping not, unless it's somebody really, really important. But we have other federal agencies that are able to take care of that. So I highly doubt the U.S. military is going to partake in those operations. Before we touch base on that, I want to bring you guys up. It looks like it has happened. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, that's a thing. And this is his stance when it goes to people that we've already designated as terrorist organizations. Give this a listen.
Thank you. Since October 7th, there's been a disturbing rise in anti-Semitism, pro-terrorist violence in our cities, on college campuses. You and I had the opportunity to write an op-ed together. And in that op-ed, we called on foreign nationals who support Hamas or other terrorist organizations to lose their visas and to be sent back to their home countries. As Secretary of State, of course, you'll be responsible for overseeing the issuance of visas. How will you enforce our laws to ensure that we remove supporters of terrorist groups from our country?
Listen, my view on this is one of common sense. Okay? If you apply for a visa to come into the United States, and in the process of being looked at, it comes to light that you're a supporter of Hamas, we wouldn't let you in. If we knew you were a supporter of Hamas, we would not give you a visa. So now that you got the visa and you're inside the U.S. and now we realize you're a supporter of Hamas, we should remove your visa. If you could not come in because you're a supporter of Hamas, you should not be able to stay on a visa if you're a supporter of Hamas. That's how I view it. And I think that's just an issue of common sense. And we intend to be very forceful about that.
Good.
We intend on being very forceful about that. That is, again, something that I want you guys to understand and listen to, because who is Hamas and where do they come from, right? And again, we're talking about unprecedented powers, right? Like, well, maybe not unprecedented, but a hell of a use of these laws that we haven't seen in a very long period of time. And so who is Hamas? Where do they come from? And what makes you a supporter of Hamas? Let's say you are Palestinian. There is so many Palestinians that I've talked to here in the United States that have family members over inside Gaza, over inside the West Bank. And what makes you a supporter of Hamas? Let's say I have a house over inside of the West Bank. I'm a Palestinian. I live here in the United States. It gets passed down over, over time via my family, whatever. I have ownership in that. If one of my family members goes inside that house, uses it for, terror against Israel, plots, plans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, my name's attached to that building, am I now supporting terror? Is the U.S. government going to take me and kick me out? Am I now going, like, you guys picking up what I'm putting down here, right? Like, there's a lot of implications that go into this, and it's going to be a very sensitive issue. When it goes down, and I see you guys saying yes, 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 the thing is, there may be some people here in the United States, don't get me wrong, you guys all know where I stand on this subject, right? Like, I am not for Hamas. I hate terrorism. I have a very, very, very strong stance against terrorism, and I 100% support in what Marco Rubio, now Secretary of State, was just saying, right? That if you are supporting Hamas, you should not have a visa. Yeah, no crap. The problem is that it's not like people stand up and they raise their hand and they say, hey, I'm a member of Hamas. The same thing went for Al-Qaeda. The same thing goes for ISIS. Now, some people do. There's some people who are absolute known members of these foreign terror organizations, and they have family members here in the United States of America. Supporting that foreign terror organization could be as simple as sending money over to this individual on, let's say, PayPal or Cash App, or supporting them on TikTok by dropping coins in there. So hear me out when I say this, because I've seen it happening. And I think it's very, very important that people understand what the Secretary of State, okay, what the President of the United States, and what this administration is intending on doing. And I think it's a good thing, because it needs to stop. I have seen, and I could probably go find it right now if you want me to, over on TikTok, and I could put it up on the screen, but then I'd be violating YouTube's, how do I want to say? I'd be violating YouTube's guidelines, community guidelines, if I did this. So you're going to have to take my word for it. I can go over to TikTok right now, and I could open up a video. More than likely, I can find myself a live video of somebody broadcasting from Gaza, right, that may or may not be a member of Hamas, getting money dropped in their chat, getting money donated to them. And so if you are doing that, I am telling you right now, you might be warned. Okay, do not buy into the BS propaganda that's being put out, because your butt might be designated as supporting a foreign terror organization monetarily. And if you really want to get screwed, if you really want the federal government to come after you, do something messed up with money. All right, you can say and you can do a lot of dumb things, but the moment you throw money into it, they're going to get you. And here's why I say that. Al Capone, everybody, like this has been talked about a lot. Al Capone did not go to prison for murder. Al Capone got hooked for tax evasion and money laundering, or was it? Yeah, tax evasion and racketeering, something like that. Money laundering. It's insane. All right, like it's all money based. I see you guys down there in the chat, right? Yeah, there we go. Rico. Taxes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's serious. So when it goes down to money, make sure you're not doing anything dumb, right? Don't get caught supporting one of these organizations because you believe in Palestine and you think they're freedom fighters. What you've been told on your social media apps is not the truth. They're not freedom fighters. They're terrorists. And the problem is there's people in this country and in others around the world that think they're resistance fighters. Now, understand that if you send money to what you think are resistance fighters, they're actually terrorists, and your butt is going to wind up in jail for supporting those organizations, and you're probably going to get deported. And if you're over here waving a Hamas flag and you get caught on video, or you're wearing a Hamas headband, or you're doing any of those things, you're going to get in trouble as well. I promise you, don't do anything stupid. Well, I'm not I'm saying this for the innocent people that think that by wearing the Hamas headband, or by wearing Hamas propaganda, or waving a Hamas or Taliban or frickin' ISIS flag, all right, you think you're supporting freedom fighters and fighting against the oppression. You're not. Your butt's going to get caught, jailed, and deported. Stop doing dumb shit. You don't know what you're talking about. Stop talking about it. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways from all of this stuff. Now, when we get over here and we start looking at some other things, obviously one of the executive orders that got signed last night was also releasing a lot of the January 6ers from prison. Well, it looks like that's actually not happening.
Move back, or we're going to have to use force. Everyone step back to the grass. Back to the grass.
You guys can protest and say whatever you'd like from the comfort of the sidewalk and the park. Please do not try and come across the street. Thank you.
Come on, man.
So, I had a video earlier, but I lost it, and it was of one of the sheriff's deputies standing outside the jail, and he was basically saying that tomorrow's a new day, and so we're going to see whether or not these people are going to end up being released, but no more of them are getting released tonight. So there was a lot of people that got ordered to be released that haven't been released yet, as far as the executive order goes. Now, there is a process that obviously has to take place. There's paperwork, processing, everything else. Thank you. I just see it down there. Charles Clark says there is a release process. I 100% agree with you on the release process. Like, all of those things are there. Now, remember that internal processes do not supersede the law. So I can't, like, if somebody's ordered to get released, if somebody ends up getting thrown out, and this is going to be one of those things that's very interesting. If somebody's ordered to get released, well, then does that mean that the internal policies and procedures take precedence over them getting released? Me personally, I don't think it is. That sounds like an internal issue. That doesn't sound like an external issue, right? The organization, the jail, the frickin' prison that these people are being held in, all right, if they have internal policies, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter. And I see people saying it does. But if all of those internal policies aren't law, then it doesn't really matter, right? And so if it's just stupid little paperwork aspects, or they're like, no, they got to get checked out by medical before they go here, and they go there, and they do this, and they go that, and they start jamming them up, then it's going to be a problem. But some of the people have been released, and I have no doubt that the other ones are going to get released. But I promise you, if some of these people start leaning on policies and procedures in order to keep them jailed a little bit longer, it's going to really, really, really start getting a freaking problem here. Do we get store credit for their returns? Man, that's a good question. Can they get money back from the commissary, everything else? Probably not. And I see Joe saying policy is not law, and that is exactly what I'm hinting at here. Policy is not law. And the problem that a lot of people have over here inside of the United States of America, and I had to have this discussion not that long ago when it came down to internal policy versus the law, and letting people know your internal policy doesn't supersede the law. So you're either going to get in accordance with the law, or there's about to be problems. I say that for a reason, because that is a very powerful statement. People are using policy. People are using policy as if it's the law. It is freaking troubling. Oh man, I don't even want to talk about it. As soon as I gather more information on it, I will. But some of the things that I've heard, in the course of this, the Leibelsberger investigation that I've been doing, and digging into all the background information, I've talked to a hell of a lot of people, ladies and gentlemen. And when I give you a full disclosure on everything that I've learned, it's going to shock you. I'm telling you right now, it's going to shock you. The corruption inside of our country has gotten so bad. I got tipped off last night, and I do believe it to be genuine concern that there's officers inside of the United States military. Now, hear me out when I say this, because it's a very important statement. There's officers inside of the United States military that were proposing openly that service members assigned underneath them get a polygraph test as to whether or not they are loyal to Ukraine. Not the United States government, not the United States military, but to Ukraine. So officers inside of the United States military wanted service members to take polygraphs on their loyalty to another country. Did you hear what I just said? Did you hear what I just said? I have documents, ladies and gentlemen. I have documents. So you can tell me that I'm being crazy all that you want. I have documents. That's a flipping problem. That is the mentality that this last administration has pushed. And that's why when I tell you that policy, procedures, and everything else are getting out of control. Military has been over politicized, right? If I'm in the military and I swear an allegiance to the United States government, and let's say I get put in a position where I have to get, a certain security clearance. Part of one of these security clearances is a polygraph test. And that polygraph test is to ensure that, number one, I can't get used by another foreign government. Basically, that they don't have anything against me, right? Like they can't get up and freaking hold anything over my head, blackmail me in any sort of way. And making sure that I am loyal to the United States government. So for somebody else to suggest inside of our military that people need to have polygraphs to swear allegiance to the U.S. government, that's a problem. And it's hearsay. You are correct. What I'm telling you right now is hearsay. But I'm also telling you that I have documents that substantiate a lot of these claims. Additionally, I have multiple witnesses to substantiate these claims. That's an issue. Wouldn't you agree? I agree. So let's wait for some of these facts to come out on what's been going on inside of our military. Texas Actual says, where is that information coming from? Sounds like Russian propaganda. Texas Actual, it's not. You know me, friend. It's not Russian propaganda. It's a very real thing. Whistleblowers inside of this country have waited for the Trump administration to come into office because they didn't want the Biden administration overseeing any of these investigations, anything that's been going on. These are issues. Seriously, this is what our military service members have been putting up with. And I see other people saying, yeah, it's a problem, so on and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, you might not like the information I just presented to you, but I'm telling you that this is coming from highly credible sources, which are bringing documentation to some of these claims. So we need to make sure that we pay attention to what's going on and do proper investigations. It's not my job to investigate those types of things, right? It's my job to talk about them. It's my job to present them at the appropriate time, in the appropriate manner. But if that is the type of crap that's been taking place, then we have a very serious issue. I'm telling you right now, these are concerns that have been raised to me, right? These are concerns that have been raised to me. People are bringing forward documents. Multiple witnesses are coming in, highly credible individuals that have heard that it's stuff that this is the type of stuff that juries look at and determine whether or not it's credible. It's not up to me to determine whether or not it's credible. But when you have documents, when you have emails, when you have multiple eyewitnesses that are willing to swear to these things, ladies and gentlemen, it's a problem. Tom, a.k.a. Bones. I thought a soldier's oath was to the Constitution and not to the government. Sir, you are correct. You are correct. And this is the issue that we're going to have inside of this country. And this is a thing, right? I'm retired now, but as a service member, that's who you're swearing an oath to, is to your government, your country, more or less the Constitution, right? And the Constitution's up at the top. And it's up at the top for a reason. So if things go against the Constitution, it's unlawful. And it sounds like there's a lot of unlawful things that have been taking place, and they've been using shady things in order to make that happen. And I think a lot of that's going to come to light. And I think the American people's heads are about to be blown in these next couple months with a lot of this stuff that's going to come out over what's been happening. And it's going to make a lot more sense. Now, I know Trump yesterday was talking about the Gulf of Mexico being renamed to the Gulf of America. Wouldn't you know it? People are already putting it on documents. State of Florida, Officer of the Government, Executive Order 25-13. Elon Musk had put this out earlier. Elon Musk actually put this out earlier. Whereas an area of low pressure moving across the Gulf of America. Check that out. That's already happening. I saw people that were coming out saying that the Supreme Court's going to have to wait on this, so on and so forth. Gulf of Havana, love it. Yeah. I saw people saying that all of these things are going to have to get weighed out, by the Supreme Court. People are going to have to take lawsuits to the Supreme Court based on some like legal precedents, whatever, and the Supreme Court interprets laws. This is already happening inside of the state of Florida, and I wouldn't be surprised if it starts happening somewhere else. You can say it sounds lame all that you want. It's pretty cool, in my opinion. I don't know. You really think about it, about where it's coming from and everything else, that's where we're at. Now, let's start talking about designating of cartels and where it's coming from and what that's going to look at. And, you know what? Before we get into that, I want to jump back real quick to January 6th. I want to talk about Jeremy Brown. Some of you guys may or may not know who Jeremy Brown is. Jeremy Brown has been incarcerated, all right, because of what he did on January 6th. Even more so, all right, it looks like, and I haven't investigated this case fully, but this is the complaint that's currently happening with Jeremy Brown. And so I'm looking into this one as well because it's super interesting. Jeremy Brown is a retired U.S. Army Green Beret. This gentleman was on the Capitol grounds in vicinity of the Capitol on January 6th. Later on, they ended up getting a search warrant, arresting him on the 30th. When they arrested him, they ended up finding several things on him, to include a sawed-off shotgun, hand grenades. It's bad. He's still being incarcerated. Now, it is my understanding, based on what I've read, that the people that are being released from January 6th are supposed to be the nonviolent offenders. Well, if you have hand grenades, you're not a nonviolent offender. The problem is that the DNA found on there didn't match Brown, didn't match his dog. So where did the hand grenades come from? A lot of people think that those hand grenades got planted. Oh, can't have those. Yeah, I see it. But right now, if you were to go over, this is, oh, come on, open up. There we go. This is some of the stuff that's being like floated around on social media right now, and I'm going to blow it up. This post comes from Laura Logan. She's got 1 million followers. And this goes down to, when I talk about it, why you need to make sure that you're vetting everything and looking at it. So she's worried about Jeremy Brown. Says his name, say his name until the DC Gulag, where he was facing 2 nonviolent misdemeanors for J6. Green Beret, who spent many years serving his country with distinction. Facts. Never went inside the Capitol, never anything to anyone that day, but he exposed 2 feds who tried to recruit him, and they came for him to punish him. That is what is being alleged, that he was trying to be recruited by some feds in order to do some inside jobs. But he ended up exposing them when they raided his home. They ended up finding grenades, and they ended up finding a sawed-off shotgun and several other things. Now, I'd be very interested to see those grenades. I'm going to do the background on this and everything else. Eduardo, I'm sorry, brother, I can't spell your name correctly. I say your name correctly, and I don't want to mess it up. Eduardo. He says, hello from Mexico City. As I Mexican, I welcome the measures that Trump administration will do in benefit of the U.S. They will also benefit indirectly down here to the normal Mexican society. I agree with that statement, brother. I think they will. But I also think, and we're going to touch on this because I'm about to jump into Mexico and the cartels, certain ones being designated as foreign terror organizations, because it's going to have implications in Mexico. I think you're going to see an uptick in violence, and I think you're going to see an uptick in violence even here in the United States of America because of what's going to be happening, or what I would think is going to be happening on the cartel. Back over to Jeremy Brown. I am going to do my best to find these images, pictures, and documents that end up showing these alleged grenades and everything else that ended up getting found on him. It is not unheard of, and you guys can look these things up. It's not unheard of for like SF guys or even big army people having explosives inside of their homes, having grenades, having having all of this stuff. The way it ends up working, right? Like, as far as it goes, how do we keep accountability of those things? So let's say I take a block of C4 and I go out to the range. When I freaking detonate that C4, there's none left. It's not like I can grab X amount of brass and bring it back. A lot of people don't understand inside the military, after you get done, even on a regular rifle range, you end up taking that brass and policing it up. So you take that brass, you police it up, and you take it back to the ammo point that like you end up getting this stuff from, all of the dunnage. You're required to turn in X amount of dunnage for whatever it is you fired to show that you fired it or you used it. I see you guys talking about the volume. I checked the volume on my end. It sounds okay. So I don't know what issues you guys are having on your side, but the volume on my side sounds okay. I'm checking it over here and everything is up. So I'm not too worried about the volume. I can crank it up a little bit, but then it starts to get kind of blasted out. I see everybody saying volume's fine, sounds fine. So volume deniers are in the house today. Good to know. When it goes down to grenades, pins, spoons, things like that, all end up getting turned back in the same way. The problem is when these things go off, if I take a grenade, I pull the pin and I throw it, the spoon goes out, the grenade goes out, and it's all downrange. Grenade detonates, grenade's gone. So the grenade itself is gone. You only have to turn in X amount of those things when you turn them back into the ammunition point, because the Army and the military knows that people are going to lose that crap. It's also possible that even if you turn in 100% of the grenade pins from the range that you were on, that you can still have a fully functioning grenade. I don't know the amount of people in the military. I lost count of dudes in the infantry after grenade ranges that would still have pins and take them back as like keepsakes. Met a guy at the gun store who, this is coming from Thumper33, met a guy at the gun store who told me he kept his military issue M16 from back in the day. So some have crazy things, I'm sure. No, you're absolutely correct. What I'm telling you is that these things exist. They're out there. All right. Or even if you want, you could pull a pin on a grenade, use an old one that you picked up on the range and put it back in there. And you can pocket that sucker, right? There is a million ways for these things to go down for people to get that stuff and get it back to the house. And I see people saying it happens, it happens, it happens. It absolutely happens with explosives. It happens with ammunition. It happens with demo. It happens with frickin' all of that crap. I would be very interested. The reason I bring that up is I would be very interested to see the grenades that they allege that he had, because on all of those grenades, if it was U.S. military issue, surplus, et cetera, it's going to have lot numbers, and they could tie those lot numbers over to exactly who is issued what. And if those lot numbers go back to something that he got issued or like his team, whatever, was using at some period of time back to the ranges, well, then it's highly credible. And then that DNA argument kind of goes out the window. And so you would have to assume at that point, if that's the case, that those lot numbers and all of that crap that they somehow managed to grab, save, hold on, that conspiracy theory would go deep as hell. All right. Now, if they were random grenades, random things that he would have no ties to, no access to in the past, it would be a much bigger issue. And I would think that the government needs to look into that. This guy, I promise you, is not going to get released anytime soon. And I would need to look at the facts before I make any statement on that whatsoever, whether or not I feel that he is falsely imprisoned, wrongfully imprisoned, or point you in a direction. I advise you, just like I do on everything else over on this channel, to do your due diligence and look into that. All right. Now I'm going to end up bringing up this next one. This right here is a PDF doc of designating the cartels and other foreign terrorists and other organizations as FTOs. All right. And especially designated global terrorists. This is an important document, and this is what's going to end up having it. I see people saying TikTok is a huge mistake, and I kind of agree, if we're being honest. And we're going to get into TikTok here immediately following this. All right, executive order, designating cartels and other organizations as FTOs and specially designated global terrorists. Texas says, I have plenty of keepsakes from here. I definitely shouldn't have. It's more of stuff that got left in kit bags or other boxes of my stuff I took home from the base. It happens. Having it isn't violent. 100% agree, right? But there's a difference between that and taking it off a range over here in the United States of America. U.S. military personnel as well. Like, dude, I remember one time I was flying home from Afghanistan. I don't remember what the heck I was doing, but I was flying home from Afghanistan, and it was for a reason. I don't remember what it was, but I ended up stopping in Kuwait on my way out to go back home. And there was a soldier in front of me whose unit patch I recognized, and I had struck a conversation up with him. And we had to go through customs and all that crap before you end up flying out of Kuwait. And this particular service member had a full rifle mag of like force protection ammo on him from over inside of, I think it was Iraq, if I remember correctly. I happen to know that dude's first sergeant from, previous experience. So I happen to know the guy's first sergeant that was in charge of him. There's people that make mistakes like that all of the time. Myself and another individual got flagged and pulled out of line for smelling like explosives, right? Like they swabbed our bags and all of that crap, and we had explosive residue on us. It's obvious why, some of us have that. Dude, I had a bag that was like my range bag, for example, that I would take to the range, or one of my demo bags. And I would use that bag for several other things. I would make sure it was cleaned out beforehand. But yes, there's going to be traces of C4. There is going to be traces of, TNT. There's going to be traces of a lot of other things on that bag. Those people that are going through, that's how highly they screen it. So I highly doubt he was bringing grenades back from overseas. I would assume, my assumption would be that it came off of a range here in the United States, because those ranges for, like soft personnel in particular are a lot more lax than big army, but we still check each other and look into things to make sure that we're not screwing up. So that's how that goes. I also know that there's a lot of other sanctioned stuff that takes place. We're not going to get into some of that stuff over here, but because it doesn't matter. There's reasons things get done, and there's control measures that are in place. Anyways, let's jump back over here to this FTO business and the cartels, because I think it's a much bigger deal and it's being ignored a lot largely. Now, what this order does and the way it breaks down as we start looking at it, it directs several people to do several different things, and there's a 2-week timestamp in order to make this happen. Now, you can't just randomly designate whoever the hell you want a foreign terrorist organization. It's got to fit into a couple different categories, and that's what he's directing people to do right here under Section 1 purpose. So he lays out the law of all of the things in order to designate them FTOs, right? And he is directing particular offices to look at these different cartels in order to label them as FTOs. This document alleges that they have made their way into some government capacity in other nations. And so when you start designating people as foreign terrorist organizations, and I've talked about it before on this channel, you have to have several things in order to be considered a terrorist. Terrorism has a definition, right? It does. Political, ideological goals using fear, intimidation, coercion, or control to get to those goals, in a nutshell. And so when we have people from the cartel that are now getting into government offices, you can now tie them into that political side. And what they just did was they said, hey, these people are going into government organizations. They have political goals and agendas, and they're using fear, intimidation, coercion, or control in order to accomplish those agendas. Now we can start designating them as an FTO. And that's what we're looking at right here. And so as we get a little bit deeper into it, now we're going to talk about some of the things that kind of like go into this executive order and what's in there. Talking about directives in order to sanction cartels, freezing assets of individuals or entities associated with the listed cartels. Now that could be here inside of the United States, that could be at home or abroad. Prohibits U.S. persons and organizations from engaging in transactions with them, obviously. It also directs federal agencies, the Treasury, state, Homeland Security to enforce sanctions and regulations, and it's going to enhance intelligence gathering and international cooperation to combat the cartels. With that being said, once they're designated a foreign terror organization, that opens up a whole new line of who's allowed to go after them and target them, specifically the DOD. So overnight, once they determine what cartels are, then we've got to start looking at posse comitatus and whether or not that's going to get suspended here inside the United States of America. But what we do have is a DOD directive to assist local and state and federal law enforcement agencies when it comes to gathering of intelligence and everything else. And now we got to go back and look at that DOD directive and see if that can be applied to FTOs operating here inside of the United States of America. Do you guys pick up the implications of what I'm about to say? Do I think drone strikes are about to start taking place inside of LA? No, I do not. Do I think drone strikes are going to take place over inside of San Antonio? No, I do not. Do I think it's possible that certain units of the United States military are going to start dropping into these tunnels in the United States of America and crossing into Mexico in conjunction with the Mexican government? Abso-freaking-lutely. Do I think we're going to start seeing some of these like leaders of the cartel getting schwacked, imprisoned, jailed? Absolutely, I do. Do I think that's going to have massive ramifications here in the United States and in Mexico? Absolutely. I think we're going to see an uptick in violence from these guys. Eduardo comes back. He says, current regime in Mexico is fully under cartels' financing and protection. They act like the local law enforcement against the far left regime that rule Mexico. Last president get to the office under his protection and money. Some of you, thank you, Eduardo. Some of you do not realize that I could take pictures of the Taliban and what they're equipped with after the U.S. military left behind, and take pictures of the cartel and put them side by side. And some of you are not going to be able to distinguish between the two. That's how well funded, that's how much stuff they have. I don't know if anybody saw it. I think I showed it on the podcast the other day. Is it tied to the cartels? Probably. Let me see if I can find them. There was a massive vehicle. It's like tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition. It's insane. This just came out of Phoenix. Tens of thousands of rounds of 7.62. There's another vehicle, and I'm really upset that I freaking didn't prep it for you guys to have up on here. There's another vehicle that just got pulled over like a couple days ago that they ended up finding tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition, and they all think it's going like over to the cartel. Let me see if I can find it. I really want you guys to see this to show you like the gravity of this. These people, if they're doing that, now we're talking about terrorist activities here in the United States of America, right? It's absolutely insane, some of the stuff that's coming out. Here's some guys inside the cartel. Here's some things that they have access to. You guys see what that is right there? Who knows in the chat what that is that he has on his shoulder? Yeah, 50 BMG was one of it, right? 50 BMG was one of them. Kimmy Larson, first one to drop in the correct answer. AT4. Why is that a big deal? AT4. Cartels buy guns and ammunition illegally in the United States and smuggle those to Mexico. Our border service simply does not exist. There's also a bunch of corrections. AT4, AT4, AT4. You are correct. That is an AT4. That is an anti-tank rocket. That is a big deal. That is a big deal. It's not Ukrainian. That is an AT4. That is an anti-tank weapon. They have armored vehicles. They have all sorts of shit. There was a video that the cartel put out a couple months ago that I saw just going down this line. And dude, it is just a massive line of freaking Bearcats, up armored vehicles, dudes in uniform, camouflage, everything else. And they have all of this crap. It's the talking tube. Chris Blood coming in. Yeah. 84 millimeter, if I remember right. Off the top of my head, 84. Who would win, Tier 1 versus cartels or cartel of choice? Well, that's a very interesting discussion, because when we bring this up, that this is what they have, and we start targeting them and we start talking about it, the cartels, dude, so much money and so much violence goes into them, and it's been kept down inside Mexico. And I love that Eduardo ended up bringing up how deep-rooted inside of the local governments, police forces, and everything else that they are. It's a serious issue. It's a serious issue. So when the United States military starts targeting the cartel, because that's what it's going to take, us sanctioning the cartel isn't going to do shit. It's not going to do a damn thing. This is a very serious problem. AT4, that one was captured to fallen U.S. Army soldier. Very well could be. Very well could be. But again, you got to look at the frickin' AT-4 itself, the tube, and see, like, look at the dunnage and see what's actually stamped on there to determine where it came from. Obviously, I can't get this from this video, right? But a war with the cartels, here it is, would be like the war on drugs, never ending. It was straight up a war on terror. And so this has to be done correct. And there's a lot of minds that got to look at this thing and start planning not just 1 or 2 or 3 steps ahead, but long-term steps ahead for where it's coming from. The other thing is that, like Israel is currently dealing with the war in Gaza, this brings the war directly to our border. And so if we start targeting them, holy hell, holy hell. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think you understand what we just called on. So the way this is implemented and the way we executed it is going to be very important for national security moving forward. There's a reason the remain in Mexico, close our borders, start building the walls, and all of that stuff has been thrown, because all of that stuff is absolutely necessary to make sure that this shit doesn't spill over into the US of A. It is going to get messy, ladies and gentlemen, and I am very curious to see how it goes. The cartels shouldn't get that side of the AT-4. Well, they have them. All right. They have a lot of stuff. The amount of crap that the cartels have and access to. Here's that video I was telling you guys about like up armored vehicles. This is the cartel. This isn't the military. This is cartel. This is the type of crap that they have access to. I showed this on the podcast not that long ago. Look at this. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. This is what is going to be designated as a foreign terror organization. It is just south of the United States of America. So please, for the love of God, pay attention. Pay attention and listen to what's going on. That is the CJNG. It is an issue. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an issue. These are the people. Thank the ATF for the AT-4s of the some of those weapon systems those gentlemen have. Dude, you got brand new tires on these trucks as well. Like, this is an entire operation. Look at the windows, look at the doors. All of these trucks have been upfitted, ladies and gentlemen. Look at them. Pretty sure that's ballistic glass.
¡Pura gente de Mencho, señores!
Are we now understanding the gravity of the situation of what we are going to be up against? All right, this is an issue. All right, and this crap can make its way over to the US of A. Now, as long as we open up targeting authorities appropriately and we handle and we start thinking 3, 4, and 5 steps ahead, there's going to be a serious frickin' schwacking that's going to take place. Eduardo coming in again. He says Cartel's main activity now is extortion, that internal terrorism, auxiliary finance drug operation. Many places in Mexico are under cartel rule to work as law enforcement for the current regime. Right. And we see the same thing, and this is the same crap, and this is why it goes into terrorism, right? How many of their number are already on our side of the border? A buttload. And that's why I told you this is going to have implications here in the United States of America. The stuff that you see taking place in Mexico is going to make its way into the US of A. Targeting of political officials, targeting of local authorities, targeting of everybody else. You're talking about a major freaking war that might make its way over to the US. This is a big deal. It does need solved and it does need handled. It needs solved and it needs handled. But all of these other cells that are over here in the United States of America, if given the orders, will open up. And if you haven't dealt and I'm sure out of the 2,000 people that are hanging out in here, if you haven't dealt with like actual freaking like cartel members as like a law enforcement officer and how little they care about the USA, man, it's going to be an issue. Texas, you said I missed your last super chat. I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab it because I want to make sure that I'm not missing these things. Like I told you guys, we're getting back in the saddle now that I've been able to calm everything down here. Where did it go? Texas. He says, not sure if it's true, but I was told today that Tier 1 task force was put together to go after the cartel that has something to do with CBP officer yesterday or the day before. Can you ask your little birds? Yeah, I'll send out my feelers. For those of you that don't know, little elephants have big ears. My ears are pretty damn big. All right. And I have lots of people that trust in me, and they should, because I don't dime them out. I don't disclose sources. I properly vet human beings. That way, when I say things, that I can say them in good, solid confidence. Good, solid confidence. So when I say things, I put them out for a reason. There's a reason I hit the target over 90% of the time on a lot of my predictions on what's going to happen. All right. If you haven't already, make sure you become a true supporter, because you are going to miss out if you don't. You're going to want to be in the Discord. We have outstanding support. One of the best communities, I think, on this freaking planet that you can be a part of. Get your butt over to the Discord if you haven't. I already posted last night. Last night, I just posted a new link. So if you've been gifted a membership lately, make sure you get over there. If you just became a true supporter today, and I haven't even give those folks a shout out, I've seen multiple people become true supporters today. If you're just becoming a true supporter, get over into the Discord. Tease Chatter, appreciate you jumping in, man. James O'Rourke, member of 16 months. Twitter verse is more worried about the Musk salute than anything. And that's sad within itself. That's so sad. That's so sad, dude. And our mods and stuff like that over in the Discord, everybody that's been taking care of everything, all the hard work that Texas is putting in, you guys, get up over there. Yeah. When we start sending our operators after these people, when we start doing correct targeting, it's going to be a big issue. Texas coming in, gifting out a whopping 50 Speak the Truth memberships for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you were lucky enough to get one of those, get your butt over to the Discord, because you're not going to want to miss it. All right. Now, the other thing that this is going to do is it's going to instruct the CBP to disrupt the cartel operations, including trafficking. It's going to prioritize that. Seizures of assets linked to the cartel. Yeah, whatever we can get our hands on. It's going to be a drop of water in a bucket, I promise you. It's going to be a huge deal, ladies and gentlemen. Like, truthfully, for us over here in the United States of America, I'm pretty worried about it. All right. When we go back and we look at the other things that the previous administration did leading up over and against the current Trump administration, we can look at things like this. Proclamation number 10142, termination of emergency with respect to the southern border of the United States and redirection of funds diverted to the border wall construction. January 20th, 2021. It's right up here on your screen. All right. The last administration immediately halted the construction of the border wall on January 20th of 2021. This was one of the first things that Biden did. It's literally right there on your screen. Stopping the expansion of the border wall, stopping the construction of it, and everything else. Yeah. You guys are you're not going to hear about it initially, but I promise you eventually you will. When this shit hits the United States and actually explodes over here in the US, the first time political officials start getting schwacked, the first time bombs start exploding in LA. When freaking belt-fed weapons start ripping off in the US, and you better believe that they're here. When belt-fed weapons, when explosives, the first AT-4 fired in the US, you're going to hear about, and everybody's going to wonder why. And I'm telling you right now how. Right here. Military is going to be working on the wall. These are all very serious possibilities that could be happening in the United States. You need to be aware of it. They have already been directed to start working on that, remain in Mexico, all that other crap. Thoughts on the motivation of the cartels? Religious ideology is a powerful motivator. Do you think they are as motivated as the religious extremists? Yeah, I think they're as motivated as them. You know, and unfortunately, it's one of the bigger motivators that you can have, which boils down to money. I think the money is one of those bigger motivators. Let me see if I can grab a clip from it real quick. Because I do want to move on from this. We've spent a lot of money or a lot of time talking about like the cartel, Trump inside of the Oval Office. I mean, I can go over and I could probably find the clips because people aren't putting it up. Here we go. Maybe this is it. Let me get this up on the screen for you guys. Let's talk about TikTok for a sec and the serious implications of this, because it also goes into what we're talking about.
Or to close it. And we have 90 days to make that decision. But I could see making a deal where the U.S. gets 50% of TikTok, polices it a little bit or a lot, depends on them. But remember, they make telephones in China, they make all sorts of things in China. Nobody ever complains about that. Here they're complaining about this. Or to...
So, Trump's talking about making a deal with China to where the U.S. gets 50% of TikTok. If you were watching the stream, if you didn't watch the stream last night, go back and watch the stream about Trump signing executive orders in the Oval Office. It's the last stream before this one. So not this stream, but the one prior, the live session. And you will hear Trump talking about this. And it was like every single reporter in there. It didn't matter what bill he was signing. The reporters were asking about TikTok. Now, that is wild within itself, that is what people were worried about was TikTok. I spoke about this over on Twitter inside of some of the spaces. I spoke about this on Twitter over inside of Stealth Medical Space. So if you're watching from Twitter, you can go back and you can listen to Stealth Medical. She is recorded, like she records her space and posts them. Listen to it because it's very important. People that are very intelligent when it goes down to the coding and things like that go into TikTok are up there and they're speaking and they're talking about it. They're probably still on it because it's such a hot button issue. And the issue is that the coding is so freaking advanced inside TikTok that even if we own 50% of it, it's already too late. The cat's already out of the bag. And when I say that and people start talking about it being a national security concern, there's two reasons, in my opinion, why it's a national security concern. Well, there's multiple reasons why it's a national security concern. One is the amount of information and tracking that it does. So you figure if there is a massive freaking data center over in China somewhere, they could have coding within TikTok that is going to take your information or information of military members. Think about the amount of military members that post on gun ranges, post while on deployment, post while out on aircraft carriers, post while flying aircraft, do all of those things. And they can then take that information and say, this account is an active duty member of the United States Armed Forces, of the Israeli Defense Force, of anything. And if they're able to track your location as a military member, whether or not you're in Israel, whether or not you're Ukrainian, whether or not you're, it doesn't matter. People of every freaking nation are using this damn app. Even if it's been banned, they're accessing it on VPNs. And so if they're able to identify active duty members of the armed forces, then they're able to track their locations, and all of that can be used for targeting purposes, because as long as they have that app and they're able to access their location for advertising purposes or what the hell ever of where they're at and when they're uploading things. And I see people saying we've already seen this in Ukraine, right? They're able to figure out who these key players are. Once they start grouping them together, well, now it doesn't matter whether or not there's a hush order on a deployment. They're able to track those cell phones, and when they see these people that are active duty service members, and all of those people are pinging in one location, and all of a sudden they ping in another location, let's say Kuwait, or let's say the UAE, or Germany, or Ukraine. And those people move from point A to point B. Now China knows to a reasonable degree of certainty that the military has deployed these people between point A and point B. That's a problem. Additionally, if you're traveling to a foreign country, if you are traveling to a foreign country as a member of the military and you've been designated as a member of this unit, and you're traveling to a foreign country, your ass can get schwacked. Think about it. That's a problem. And it doesn't matter whether or not we have it doesn't matter whether or not we own 50% of that company or not, because that data is going to get stored somewhere else. So unless we have access to those servers, and unless we can see what's on those servers, our military personnel are SOL. They would all need brand new cell phones, because now we're talking about IMEIs and things of that nature, which they're able to track and pull locations off of. So everybody would need a brand new cell phone. It would be extremely wise for this administration to find the money in order to get freaking cell phone swapped of these people and actually pay for it. Of these people with, dude, I start off with people that have TSSCI security clearances. Make sure they don't have TikTok on their personal devices. And if they do, get rid of it, get them a new phone number, get them a new device, because it's very possible they could be targeting and doing all of those things based off that information. Guys, it's crazy. It's scary. This stuff is already out there. So this is not Matt talking about a wild flipping conspiracy theory. This is Matt straight up pointing out to you what a national security concern looks like. And what's shocking, what's absolutely shocking about this entire thing is that the media, think about this, of how addictive this platform is. And remember, it blew up during COVID. When people had nothing better to do, they end up getting addicted to this crap. It causes, and we know this, dopamine releases, et cetera, within your system, right? When you're getting those positive clicks, likes, views. But the other thing that you end up seeing is the confirmation bias that's going on over in TikTok. And a lot of people, a lot of people, this isn't even OPSEC, ladies and gentlemen. I see you, Britt. I understand what you're trying to say. But this is stuff that it's not just me that talks about. There's a ton of people that talk about this. The problem is we also have physical terrain. We have targeting of human beings in physical terrain. Targeting of human beings in physical terrain. But we also have the targeting of their minds, the human terrain aspect. And right now they've got control over what information is and isn't being fed. And this is the information that's polluting the minds of our youth. And that information that's polluting the minds of our youth, when you see the rallies over at UCLA and several other places, you got to start asking yourself why they feel the way that they feel. And the actual explanation is the information that they're being fed. Most of our youth on college campuses are getting their news and information from social media, and a lot of them are getting it from TikTok. A huge chunk of them are getting it from TikTok, and they don't vet it. They just take it because TikTok has misinformation guidelines and everything else. When you see those rallies taking place over at UCLA this last year and in several other locations where you have these violent takeovers of these campuses, it's not that the apps told them to do it. It's that the apps are feeding these particular individuals information. And so you can conduct a mass misinformation campaign as well using this, causing and sowing discord and chaos inside the United States of America. You can convince the youth of America through terms like genocide to fund foreign terror organizations and back them, and you can cause a lot of problems here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very serious national security concern, and it needs to be taken seriously. With everything I just talked about, I'm going to go over to Discord, and I want to be in there for, I don't know, I'm going to give you guys 30 minutes. So I'm going to go into Discord, and I'm going to open up the Live with Matt section. If you guys want to discuss some of these things that I brought up, go join me in the Discord inside that Live with Matt section. You guys are going to see me jump up in there right now. All right, you're about to see it. Texas, love you to death, brother. What do you think about everything that I just said? If Texas talking you up over on Discord, what do you think, man? I see he ended up dropping down. I'm going to open it up so that you guys aren't missing out on it, so that y'all can see what the hell is going on up over there. I want you guys to be well freaking informed of everything that we're talking about. So let me see if I can drop this down. It's not letting me, so I'm not able to.
Dude.
Texas, what's up, brother? How are you feeling about this?
Very, very confusing about a lot of things. I like the Gulf of America, though. I like that part.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Other than that, I mean, a lot of the executive orders, were interesting. I found it like very comedy a little bit. I like the part where somebody asked him about the drones, and he turns around to the lady and he's like, "Can we find out about that right now? Can we pronto?" And like he said it like we're gonna wait there on live TV and he's gonna get an answer like while we wait, but then the camera's just cut like 5 minutes later and he was done. Like it's all these things and like people asked what he thinks about meeting with Putin. He said, yeah, he'll meet with Putin. He doesn't know who's going to meet with first. He said last time he met with Saudi Arabia first because they offered to invest $450 billion, and if they're willing to do that now, then he'll do the same to that. I don't know. It's just it was strange.
Yeah.
But the cartel stuff, that's making things interesting, like in a few ways, you know, in a good way and in a bad way.
Dude, I am seriously worried about the cartel stuff, and I'm seriously worried about Trump's handle on the situation over inside of Ukraine. I'm going to be honest with you. I think he's got a decent handle on what needs done in the Middle East. That's why he was talking about sanctions against Iran. Do you think that he has a decent handle on what's going on over inside of Ukraine? Like when he says that he's going to end up having a peace deal, because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of lives annually that are being lost. Do you think he has a decent handle on a good negotiation tactic between Zelensky and Putin?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's not really up to him. In the fact, yes, he can say he'll cut funding, and yes, Ukraine can't survive, or it'll be difficult to survive without Western funding. But does he really want to do that? Yes, maybe there's going to be a lot of Americans that'll run around being like, yay, cut funding for Ukraine, now we can put it in here. And then there's going to be a lot of Americans that are going to go to protests and all that stuff of that. Does he need that? He doesn't need it, because to keep funding Ukraine, I've actually looked into this last night. The United States sent like 600 M113s to Ukraine, not Bradley. So talk about just regular IFVs. The USA just got the delivery of a replacement for each one of these with the newer one, only because they were able to get funding so quickly, because they used Ukraine funding, obviously, to do that. So they now just got replaced all those vehicles with the newer version of it. So if any military high up general, like whatever person in charge, to talk to him or to advise him on anything, be like, yeah, maybe you can keep this like whole tough, like we'll cut stuff to Ukraine image to the public, but what about like just keep doing what we're doing, because we're getting new stuff and we like getting new stuff. Like let's just keep taking our own money, putting it in our own pocket, and keep giving them our old stuff, and you know, we get new stuff.
Yeah,
and it's fact, because they have been delivered now. The new IFVs, they're pretty cool. I looked into it because it's like a modular system. It can be changed out. The turret is remotely. It has more room on it and all of that. And I don't know. So that's just what I have in mind. And also, like, you speak to guys over here. Trump has been in office for 24 hours. I've spoken to soldiers here. I've spoken to commanders here in the last 24 hours.
Okay.
Nothing here changed. The war didn't stop.
No.
Like, like we didn't, like, nobody like, oh, Trump's in office. Let's save our ammo. Like, no, like, operations is going on. Actually, better than ever. Like, I mean, not better than ever, but like better than for a while. Boys have been scrapping, doing some real damage. And actually making progress in certain places, like real progress. And then again, like, think about the long, deep strikes in Russia. It's became such a normal thing that people don't even talk about them anymore.
Right. So how do the commanders, because you said you've talked to a couple different commanders and people like that over inside Ukraine, how are those Ukrainian commanders taking this? Are they just kind of waiting to feel it out and hoping for the right thing?
Yeah.
Like,
in my eyes, the same answer is always like, is the U.S. really gonna put up the image that we're gonna leave our ally behind?
Yeah.
Trump is talking about how Russian warships lurking in around Greenland is an international security risk and all of that. So that means that obviously we're not friends with Russia. So whatever Russia does is an international security risk. That's if you take whatever he said out of his words. So you can't play both sides. You can't be like Russia's bad. We need to be protected. We need Greenland. We need these bases. We need Romania. We need all these places to be protected. And also, let Russia do in Ukraine what they want, and like we're not helping Ukraine because Biden did. Like I don't see that happening. I think Trump's a very smart man. I think Trump was helping Ukraine before Ukraine even knew they needed help. You were in Ukraine on orders of Trump, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's people have this like short-term memory when it comes to this. Like, people have like really short-term memory. They remember the last 6 months of the war. They don't remember the fact that there was Russian soldiers in within 20 kilometers of the center of Kiev.
right.
People forget that.
I want to play this clip, Texas, and you guys should be able to hear it over on Discord now because I think I fixed it. Let me know. Let me know if you feel or have seen any indication of this whatsoever inside Ukraine. This is one of his campaign promises that he ran on. You ready?
If
I'm watching.
were president, and I say this, I will end that war in one day.
on.
It'll take 24 hours.
He said, if I were president, the war in Ukraine would end within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Right. There's the clip for everybody at home. If he was president, the war in Ukraine would end within 24 hours. Have you seen any indication?
I remember that clip. I remember we had a live stream when he did that clip, and I said, I'm willing to bet my bank account that I don't care if Trump is president 50 times over. It takes more than 24 hours to execute orders like that.
Right.
It takes more than 24 hours to get a message to every individual unit on both sides of a front line that, hey, stop fighting, hold what you have. It takes more than 24 hours to do that. So how are you going to stop a war in 24 hours? That's even if you have an agreement of both sides, it would take more than that. Look at between Israel and Gaza, which is on a scale 0.1% of the size of the war in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes more than 24 hours to just stop a ceasefire and end the war. So like how he was able to make a statement like that and people actually consider it being real. I was laughing then and I laugh at it now. Look, don't get me wrong. I am not against Trump. I think Trump's a good president for the United States. The United States needs to clean itself up. But at the same time, Trump is not God. He's not magically AI that knows everything.
Mm-hmm.
He has advisors. He likes to take advice from his advisors, and you can see how he's avoiding questions now when it comes to Ukraine because he obviously has had conversations with his advisors.
Right.
And his advisors has been saying, maybe try to minimize on talking and giving date and timelines on doing these things because even us with our magic power, with a Trump name behind us, can't do whatever we want when it comes to that. It's not like it's Israel and Gaza because, Trump could say to Hamas, I'll rain down fire, and yes, because he can't do that. He can with one aircraft carrier wipe off Gaza, clean it, Nima. Sorry, that's an Israeli word for not Ukrainian word for not. There's no more, and that's it. Well, I don't understand how he could do that with the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He can't really say to Russia, "Oh yeah, I'll smack Moscow tomorrow. I'll wipe you guys off the face of the earth if you don't stop." He can't really do that. So he obviously has to go with a different approach. And he was talking yesterday about he thinks that tariffs is better than sanctions.
Right.
He thinks he puts, and
Well,
I'm like,
I mean,
how's
tariffs is good for
how's
us
tariffs
because so here's what ended up happening, right? Like
when
we
it comes to
sanctioned
Russia? He was talking about when it comes to Russia, though.
well, it doesn't matter, Russia or anybody else, right? Like when we sanctioned the Taliban, for example, like when we sanctioned the Taliban and we sanctioned all of those people, that money ends up getting grabbed and going and being held onto. And what the Biden administration did with that money is they took it and they started releasing it back to the Taliban under the guise of foreign aid.
Okay.
And so, like, I think what he's going for and what he's doing, I do believe that those sanctions and stuff are a very good, hold for Russia. But the tariffs and everything else, the other thing he was saying, like, if you're doing business with these people, we're going to impose, like, one, we're probably not going to do business with you, but you're going to end up having these massive tariffs that are going to go back and make it not opportunity or not ideal for you to be doing business with them anymore. Right. So let's say, for example, when we sanctioned against, buying Russian oil and gas, for example, if China wants to buy up all the Russian oil and gas afterwards, well, now we're just going to impose a massive sanction on frickin' China. Right? We're going to impose a massive tariff on China because they're purchasing a shit ton of Russian oil and gas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm saying like Russia, like posing tariffs on Russia, like Russia doesn't buy much stuff from the U.S. because they can't,
Right?
Because they're sanctioned. So what's the point of not adding tariffs?
Well,
I didn't understand. He says tariffs was better than sanctions.
yeah,
and I didn't understand. I didn't see it the way.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is we sanction these countries, and then they find workarounds. And so the idea is to the countries that are doing the workarounds of the sanctions.
Now it's going to be tariffs on them.
Now they get massive tariffs, and so it is a deterrence to go to going against those sanctions, if that makes sense. I wanted to bring Juice
I have
up
an
'cause he's
idea
been
of what
sitting here
Trump's
for a sec, if you don't mind.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
No, I understand, but he made one short statement in the end of that whole before the video cut in the Oval Office is where he said about the EU and how he's planning on handling the EU is that, oh, I'll just sit down with them and have them buy American gas and oil. And if they do that, then everything will be good. I think that's his plan. His plan is to make American gas and oil the number one purchased gas and oil in the world because there's plenty of it in Alaska now that he signed the executive order that they can start drilling again. And they have all these platforms and everything ready there. So now if he does that, then he's going to tell the EU, no problem. You spend the money here. We'll help Ukraine. We'll work with you and your bullshit over there, and it's all gonna be kumbaya. Because Trump looks at it as money. So I don't know. That's just a weird statement. Not weird, but that's like the pickup that I picked up in them. But yeah, go ahead and take these guys.
Okay, Juice Junkie, what you got, friend? Sorry for the delay. And then we're gonna
Hey,
Russ
I
into
just want to say, Matt, you the man. I don't care what Texas or Rob says anything about you. You is the man. Another thing is Texas, the border in the South of America here. I think that's going to be a really good thing because I know each one of us in here has lost somebody from fentanyl overdose. You know what I mean? And we need to take control of that shit because if not, it's just going to keep getting worse and they're going to keep getting bigger. And I honestly believe that's a good thing for our country and the world.
And that's the other thing, like people are looking at like fentanyl as a crisis. And I don't think people are looking at the addiction to social media apps like TikTok in the same way. And to me, that's what was such a huge sign inside of the Oval Office, right? Because we have all of these issues inside of this country and all of them need addressed and they need addressed appropriately.
Yeah.
If the reason we are, end up throwing these drugs, right, as class 1, class 4, class 3, whatever class of narcotics they end up being, right, depending on what it is that they're buying from them, whether they're, synthetic, they're false, whatever, is they end up killing people. And in the same way, to me, these social media apps, like some of them, have the same implications when it comes to addiction as far as dopamine releases and everything else but also they carry the extra issue of false and misinformation and subverting our own government through that. And being able to control who's getting that is a very serious issue, right? And it is very clear to me of how big of an issue it is as far as the dopamine addiction, because of the amount of questions that were being asked inside the Oval Office. You know, while we do have issues like the frickin' cartel, you know, and what they're doing down on that southern border. Right?
For TikTok, I agree with you 100%.
Right.
I believe that TikTok shouldn't, we shouldn't have TikTok as an app here in America or the world, because the background of the, what do you call that, engineering of the programs and stuff like that they have in it, collecting your information and stuff like that, especially with what you said with collecting military information. And it's a big deal because you don't want your military personnel being freaking tracked by some other goddamn country.
No,
It's just
like,
crazy to me.
And like, I could show everybody how like easy, like, and for those of you that haven't, right? Like, let me see if I can open it up here. I'm going to open up TikTok and
breaking news. The Democrat Party and the mainstream.
Stop talking. I don't want you to, not you, TikTok. All you have to do is type in Mill Talk over on TikTok and check this out. So you go over to TikTok and you type in Mill Talk and look at what you end up finding. All right. So you type in Mill Talk, MILTOK, and this is what it pulls up. Thread after, like, just so many videos of U.S. service members that you're able to then take and start tracking. And if you're able to get, and it's weird how it's like all these thoughts over there that are like in uniform, like, hey, look at me, right? That are some of the top videos that end up going up. But you can take these suckers, law enforcement, right? You can track law enforcement personnel. You can do all of those things, and you can start geolocating them. Or you could just pull their freaking data. Here we got a guy from RTB. How important is that? Guy active duty from the Ranger Training Brigade. And I can tell that just from his beret and the flash on his beret. So he works for like the Ranger Training Brigade. You can find these people and you can go down. There's members of the special operations community. There's members of, you know, infantry units that do, there's key players all over the place that are on this. And that is why it's such a serious issue to me. Look, we got goddamn drill instructors on TikTok. Drill instructors. How key of information do you think that is?
I don't know if you know that Trump is live now, post inauguration prayer service.
Is that over on his Twitter account?
No, I just saw on Fox News it's live, but they're like sitting there with Trump and JD Vance.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, it's the National Prayer Breakfast this morning. So they should be doing the National Prayer Breakfast, which is, you know, up there. And this is the other issue that I have, man. We have so many problems in our country, as like I'm currently flipping through here. I don't know. Rustin, what you got?
Look, I'm sending you something, Matt.
Hey, yeah, so I was on a live like late last night, and this person was saying that the National Guard can be used by the president. I'm like, no, it cannot. It's actually, or it's run by the president. I'm like, no, it's not. It's actually run by the governors of every state.
That's partially true.
And like the governors have to like say it's okay for the president to use them, because
partially true.
Yeah. So am I like half right, half wrong on this?
Yeah, half right, half wrong. So when you look at a National Guard uniform, right? Let's take I don't know, the Texas Army National Guard, and you look at their name tapes. It doesn't say Texas Army National Guard. It says U.S. Army on them. Same thing for the United States Air Force. It doesn't say U.S. Air Force National Guard. It says U.S. Air Force. The reason that is, and all of those troops within the National Guard go to, let's say you're an infantryman in the Oregon National Guard, for example. You have never been an active duty service member. That person, when they come into service, they go through the big Army and they go to the same training course that I did to get certified as an infantryman in the United States Army before they go back to the National Guard. Picking up what I'm putting down?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Okay. So the reason that's done that way is because the federal government also pumps a buttload of money into those National Guard units as well. That is all because if the US government so requires to, they can call upon those units and put them on active duty, and they are going under like federal authority. So until the federal government calls upon them, they are under control of the governor. When the federal government calls upon them, then they go under control of the federal government. And then it starts to get into a bunch of legal crap that I truthfully do not have the degree to thoroughly understand. If the government wants to deny those troops to go on those federal orders, how that would work. So if the government says that those federal orders are somehow not lawful or legal, the governor could theoretically, I think, stand them down. I don't know. It's an interesting discussion to be had. But that's what ends up happening. And that's why we have National Guard troops that ended up getting deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan. Currently, there's probably National Guard troops deployed to combat theaters right now as we speak. I'm pretty sure the 3 service members that ended up, I might be wrong on this one. I don't want to say it. I'd have to look up their unit real quick. But I feel like those service members that got killed over inside Jordan were National Guard members. I might be wrong on that.
Oh,
but
I have to do some research on that. And then you might get a kick out of this. I was on a live late last night as well. They were talking about the Israel and Palestine thing, and I jumped in and said that. And it happened to be, guess who happened to be on the panel?
Who?
The woman that threatened me and you.
A woman
And
what?
she threatened the woman that threatened both of our heads off in
you're
a
kidding
fight.
me.
No, I'm not kidding. So I said, according to the international law, Hamas is not allowed to use mosques, schools, or hospitals as weapons or staging points, and can't use kids as soldiers. And they're like, no, they're not using all that stuff. I'm like,
Wow.
bullshit. Yes, they are.
You know, I still have those videos on my screen. Hold on just a sec. I'll open them up because some people haven't heard of like how seriously affected people's voices get. But I wanted to make a correction on myself. The 3 service members that ended up getting killed last year, they were assigned to, give me one sec. They were assigned to the 926 Engineer Battalion, 926 Engineer Brigade, and that is part of the U.S. Army Reserve. So they're not active duty. They were reserve troops. I thought they were National Guard. They're not the reserve. So I have to correct myself on that. The people that ended up getting killed was Sergeant William Jerome Rivers. He was 46 years old. He's from Carrollton, Georgia. Specialist Kennedy Sanders, 24 years old, from Waycross, Georgia, and Specialist Brianna Moffett. Moffett from Savannah. So those are the members that ended up getting killed over inside Jordan in that terror attack. That crazy chick. And again, I think this is why it's so important for people to understand that. I literally have these videos saved to my desk. I'm actually really excited.
Let me get my rage out on you.
Please get your rage out on me. Get your rage out on me from East LA talking about
I'm not in East LA. I'm not in East LA.
Oh, well, where are you?
I'm in Claremont.
That lady threatened to cut my damn head off on a TikTok live session from East LA. And she gave me like the exact location pretty much of like where she lived and everything else. If you guys haven't seen that, like it's actually hilarious. She's so stupid. And then I ended up figuring out who she was. She thought she was hiding behind her profile name, but she was dumb enough to put her profile picture up and doesn't understand that there's software that people can use in order to track them down. And that's exactly what ended up happening. So go ahead. Sorry about that.
So, and then no, it's all good. Once I said all that, she's like, I'm gonna cut your head off. I'm like, okay, come to Texas. We'll do mutual combat. I'll grab a fucking cop and tell him, hey, me and her agree to this. Please don't intervene. And she's like, no, I'm gonna actually cut your head off. And she was dumb enough to post on her story on TikTok. I actually have screenshots of her like face in a car. So if I knew how to like do analyzing on it, I could find her face.
I already know her face. I already know who she is. I know exactly where she lives. I already put her information out on, like, if you go search my profile over on Twitter, you'll figure it out. I think I even did a TikTok post of who she is that got taken down because I violated their policy of doxing people, whatever. F it. If you want to, like, those are the people, right? That
Those
are
are
threatening
the
to cut my head off.
keyboard warriors.
Those are the people who need to get deported, who need to get arrested, who need to be tried for terrorism. They exist in this country.
Exactly. Yeah, they're like, no, Hamas is not using kids as soldiers. I'm like, yes, they are. And I'm like, you have to trust me on this, because on TikTok you can't post a video with guns, so I can't show you. But they are using kids as human shields and soldiers. So I'm like, you're just fucking dumbass shit.
Right.
And you don't not know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, they don't. And that's what's infecting minds. And I think people need to actually start going after them. It's a massive, massive issue. With that being said, I want to go back to Texas, and then we're going to end up kind of like closing this out because I got things that I have to do today. Love you guys. But it's been about 2 hours worth of streaming now, so I'll need to move on. Texas, thoughts on any of this?
Yeah. I missed the last few minutes. Sorry, a kid ran in here and had to do some, family stuff. But yeah, I'm just waiting. I'm sitting back and being as patient as I can. I can tell you this: the Ukrainian military workforce has not stopped for 1 minute. Like, especially my position and role that I do right now with the military.
Right.
You know that personally, and like I have a big part in logistics, and logistics is just like at full swing, if not even higher. Like there's not a shortage of new vehicles needed and new generators and equipment. And speaking of which, we actually ended up buying a van for a chosen company. Still not funded, but we bought the van already. It's on the way to Ukraine now. But yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't see that this whole like, wow, Trump's coming into office, let's cry about it and stop fighting is happening. So we'll see what ends up happening.
We'll see what happens, man. My main concern, like my major concern, I guess, when it comes to this is I personally, at least at this point, right, as you stated, a lot of this stuff is hearsay until like documents, people, names, all of that crap is validated, right? My major concern is that the Biden administration, and truthfully, you can take this all the way back to Obama and the 8 years he spent in office. All of these people have been promoted up, right, over the years, and they're in key strategic locations. Dude, I went off. If you guys follow me on X, you'd see my post from last year talking about a presidential appointee by President Biden that's on the board of the USO that was talking negatively about U.S. service members who never spent a day in uniform. Her husband did, and I have high respect for her husband. I stood shoulder to shoulder with him in a combat zone. I have no issues with her husband. He's a hell of an honorable dude. But the shit that she's putting out online is some of the most radical shit, that I've ever heard of. And these are presidential appointees. So why the hell are these people on the board of the places like the USO? Why? And like those people are plugged into different areas of our government and different locations of our military all over the globe. There is a lot of trash that needs to get taken out. And what I'm worried about is that those people, because it's not like Trump's on the ground. It's not like his administration's on the ground getting on the ground truth. But those people that are passing that information up the line are the ones that have the real control, the people that are controlling the information that goes up to the office. And so it's very important that those people are properly vetted and that trash gets taken out, because there's a lot of trash inside of our country. We've given people, especially the damn Republican Party has given Ukraine a lot of shit for corruption. And rightfully so. I witnessed it firsthand. But
you saw what Zelensky said. You should maybe look at where the corruption started,
right?
Like when it comes to the money in Ukraine. Like look at all the companies down there that we're dealing with. He said it on the podcast. He said it on Lex Friedman's podcast. He said it. He said if you want to keep blaming Ukraine for corruption, Where is half of the amount of money that we were promised? It never showed up. This stuff, he says, the stuff that never shows up to Ukraine, it is not, it is privately. He says, I offer the United States government to use Ukrainian aircrafts, jets, cargo. Ukraine has one of the largest cargo aircraft fleet in the world. Obviously, we know about the Antonov that was destroyed and the new one is almost completed build. But he offered to bring all these logistics. He could save millions and millions of dollars per shipment for the U.S. That in that money, you could provide more stuff. But no, this is all bid contracts by U.S. companies that have lobbyists that lobby with all these inner government nonsense that they want these contracts, that they provide the cargo transport, they provide the logistics, and then stuff goes missing or stuff don't show up or whatever. Who is keeping track? I want to know if Trump wants to stop the war in Ukraine and he wants to cut funding, can he do one thing before that? And I hope somebody clips this and puts this on the internet. I want to know if Trump can run an audit on all the stuff that was promised to Ukraine and all the stuff that arrived in Ukraine. And let's find out where that is.
Yeah, that's going to be happening.
Let's find out where that is, and let's give that to Ukraine first.
That's going to be
before you want to give them more stuff.
Yeah, that's going to be happening, right? And, you know, I'm a big proponent. Texas, I know you've heard me say this before. America needs to shit or get off the pot when it comes to Ukraine. Because what we're doing is we're hamstringing Ukraine along. Like, we're giving them little bits of funding that kind of keeps the war machine moving, but doesn't allow it to move forward, doesn't allow it to plan, doesn't allow it to actually action objectives. And the other issue is if the United States government, and I'm speaking as an American, right, like on American policies and moving forward, not my own personal beliefs, but just as an American policies, providing this level of support to a war, the U.S. government should have a national strategic objective in Ukraine against Russia if we're providing that much military aid. And those goals that we have, our national strategic goals over inside of Ukraine for pushing and kicking Russia the hell out, right, should provide Ukraine with the proper amount of funding for it. And it should be labeled out in those documents. We're going to give Ukraine X amount of money, X amount of equipment, what the hell ever, lay it out. Then X amount of equipment is going to come from NATO, X amount of equipment is going to come from the EU, X amount of equipment is going to come from these random countries, and all of that stuff combined is going to allow Ukraine to meet these national security objectives of the United States of America, and that is why we are providing this money. We haven't done that, and that is the biggest damn problem.
Enough to stay alive, not enough to win or get to the objective point.
It's not even enough to stay alive. It's not even enough to stay alive.
Between me and you, Russia's not just going to roll over Ukraine. I don't care what anybody says. Unless they drop a nuke, they're not rolling over nobody.
No.
So enough to stay alive, and not enough to win. I mean, like, with what Ukraine has from the EU and from the US has always been enough to keep fighting to the point where Russia won't make massive pushes with this equipment that we have and the capabilities that we have. But also, at the same time, Ukraine is not going to be able to make massive pushes with the restrictions and the equipment that they have. Like, I don't know. I see one thing. I see Trump,
brother, if we would have taken
what he's supposed to.
If we would have taken 70% of the funds that we have provided to Ukraine so far, 70% of the equipment and funds and everything that we provided to Ukraine so far, and in February of 2022, if we would have given that in one massive lump sum, how big of a difference do you think that would have made in the overall war?
So I think Ukraine shouldn't have gotten a single penny. I think the U.S. should have given all the equipment in the first day. Like, they should have started chartering freaking jets to Krakow with HIMARS on the first day, Bradleys on the first day.
That's what I'm saying. If we would have done that, that's exactly what I'm saying. If we would have done that,
there would have been no war right now. There would have been no war. At one point, maybe we would have not rolled over and pushed Russia out completely, but there would have been a free zone. 100%. 100%.
Not only would it have been cheaper, we would have saved more lives and the war would be over. And that is the point that I'm trying to make. And that is why I'm bringing up corruption and shit inside the United States government, because by releasing things the way that we've done, And not having those goals, we have allowed that shit to freaking drag out over a much longer period of time, feeding our military industrial complex and the lobbyists and everybody else. We could have saved hundreds of thousands of lives and billions of US freaking taxpayer dollars had we have done that. So it pisses me off.
If you want to, if you want to even go like one step further than what you just said, is think about every time when the Ukraine asked the U.S. in public, this was publicly asked in Congress or Senate or President or wherever, he asked for X. Give me Bradleys, give me tanks. Oh, no, that's a red line. We can't cross.
Right.
And then a year later, let's give it to them. Give me F-16s. Oh, it takes 3 years of training. Ukrainian F-16 pilots have right now have a record for the most aerial targets shot down in one sortie. In all these, in 40 years of an F-16 going on, nobody's done that. Why? Because they're in combat. They're doing this. So he shot down, I think it was 2 drones and 3 cruise missiles, or 4 cruise missiles in one sortie. The point is that this was all like, oh, this is a red line we can't cross. We cannot have American Abrams tanks. They wouldn't even know how to use them. They wouldn't even know how to use them was the answer.
Yeah,
it was always some bullshit. And you can go the same thing with Israel. It's the same thing that they did with Israel. I read the maps, she said. She said, I saw the maps. They're not there. Like, they're playing these games where they know, did Biden come to the Ukraine once? How come other leaders from other countries came to Ukraine to visit Ukraine while this war was going on? How come the other countries, from many other countries, the leaders came to Ukraine? Did Biden even attempt to come once?
Dude,
he sent his 2 secretaries. That's who he sent. They both did a lot for Ukraine, but it's still a big difference if you show up yourself. It's a big difference when you show up yourself.
When he was VP, he went there. Now I put this up on the screen.
Yeah, but I'm talking about now in this presidency.
Sure, 100%. Now I put this up on the screen for a reason, because I still see it rolling through the chat. And it's people that are misinformed. And I really wish people would inform themselves before they say things. Like I said, I want people to be critical thinkers. I don't want them to be idiots. People are still saying that we promised Ukraine that we would protect them. This is what they are talking about. This is the Budapest Memorandum that everybody is pointing to as a damn smoking gun that the United States said that they promised Ukraine protection. We absolutely did not. Here's the English portion of it. It's in a couple different languages. So here's all of the other people that end up signing on to it. And it welcomes them, the accession, to the NPT, the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, right? When we get into it and we start looking at it, nowhere in here, nowhere, not a single freaking paragraph, not a single word in this. How many? 6 paragraphs or 5? I forget. 6 paragraphs. Not a single place in the 6-paragraph freaking memorandum does it say that we're going to like defend Ukraine. What it says is the United States of America, the Russian Federation, and the UK of Great Britain and North Ireland will consult in the event a situation arises which raises a question concerning these commitments. Those commitments are to the sovereignty of Ukraine. All it says is they're going to consult. There was no promise of defense.
I don't know why people are talking about it, because one of the underwriters on this is Russia, who's like the actual person who's the problem. So like this document is like a contract that you're having with somebody that is the person you're like, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Like this document is irrelevant in a way where the underwriter is the aggressor. Imagine the United States and Afghanistan make a deal where America is gonna protect Afghanistan from the Syrians or whatever, from Iran, right. and America just goes and bombs Afghanistan ourselves. Like, well, like, I mean, that's irrelevant at this point. The point is that as the fact that we are the United States of America and Ukraine is our ally, we
Correct.
should support, and Russia is definitely not an ally of the United States, or ever was, or ever will be. The mindset, the mentality, if people actually start learning and studying the history properly, they'll know that Russia is not a friend of the United States. Russia's never been a friend of the United States. Russia's just one country that likes to play the long game. The Soviet mentality is, we can wait 100 years, and then ruin your life, but we will ruin it eventually. That's the mentality. That's why people said before that Putin could have rolled over and did this whole thing in 2014. He does it in stages because he waits. He doesn't feel like he has to do it all at once. He's like, oh, let's stop the thing now. That's what Zelensky's saying. What's him gonna stop from then doing this in 10 years again or in 5 years again? It's the Russian mentality. It's the Soviet mentality. So therefore, the United States should support Ukraine one way or the other. Doesn't matter what party you are. And if any single one of these supporters or viewers in this channel right now would like to understand why, and really understand why, message me. And if you have some spare time, you can take a couple of weeks off of work, come out to Ukraine. I will personally drive you around in Ukraine. I will give you a full week tour. I will take off from my duties that I have, and I will show you why, without any documents or any promises or any of that nonsense, because we are the United States of America, because we are the country that defends freedom and democracy all over the world. That should be the end of every reason of why we should support Ukraine and why we should kick Russia the hell back to the Stone Age.
Period. Ukraine's not perfect, and the United States sure as hell isn't perfect. If the United States wasn't corrupt, then Trump wouldn't have ran his first campaign on draining the swamp. Think about that.
Yeah.
People need to pull their heads out of their butts. I'm really curious to see if any U.S. government reps have actually stated in Congress or the Senate or anything when they're pontificating that we promise to protect Ukraine. Because if somebody said that and they're echoing back to this memorandum, they're full of shit. And they should be fired because that's spreading more mis and disinformation. But people need to have a serious discussion about how much money, number one, the United States could have saved, but more importantly, how many lives could have been saved at this point had we have done the right thing in the first place and provided, like I said, even 60 or 70% of everything just upfront, one giant lump like FU send to Ukraine. How much of a difference? I can't say definitively that would have automatically allowed Ukraine to win the war. But what I can say definitively is that there would be a hell of a lot less terrain under Russian control right now. And there would be a hell of a lot less people dead. People do not understand. When I say overwhelming violence upfront saves lives in these situations, I absolutely mean it. And it's freaking sad that our elected officials don't understand that or don't care because their pockets are being lined by lobbyists or they're going to go work for these companies on the boards afterwards, whatever. It's all BS. It's one corrupt way or another, or by having their family members invest in these companies that they know are about to get a buttload of money trickled in over the years. It's corruption. There's all sorts of different forms of it. It doesn't mean that Ukraine is giving a gold bar to a U.S. senator. It means that these politicians are doing these things for their interest, and it's flipping sad. It's absolutely disgusting. With that, Texas, I'm sorry, I'm out of time today.
Yeah,
I know
see
everybody
so many
wants...
comments in the chat saying you should do a tour of Ukraine, all that. I'm not a big camera guy. I don't have the time to do any of that. I would love for Matt to come and do that.
Yeah, that was on my list of things. If you don't remember, before my wife mysteriously got ill, I said I was coming to Ukraine to do that.
I know.
I'll go out there
Guys,
and do that
all
for
your
Matt.
job, every member in this community, every supporter, every viewer, message Matt every live stream, just like you do about his pants. Message him about going to Ukraine, and maybe eventually he'll get off his butt and go to Ukraine.
Hey.
He's wearing pants. He's wearing pants.
I
Good.
got pants on
All right,
today. I
well,
also
have a great day.
My
Oh,
liberal
sweet.
tears
I'm wearing
NFG shirt on.
Sweater,
I'm wearing NFG merch right now in
Damn right.
Ukraine. Just
Damn
letting
straight.
you know.
Damn straight.
All right,
NFGshop.com.
guys. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. And I know you got to go and you got to do stuff.
Yeah.
Let's catch up. Yeah, we'll talk.
All right. Later, guys.
Later.
All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of stuff to look like. It's about to be a wild year. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. I hope you enjoy the content that we're putting out right now. Peace, love, happiness. God bless. I'm out of here. I want to thank every single person that donated to this channel. Please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, notification bell on. When breaking stuff happens, either here in the United States or abroad, you better believe that I'm going to jump on this computer and I'm going to start giving you up-to-date, accurate information.